In this video, I just wanted to go through some of the intellectual property terms related to Shopify's terms of service. Clients are often asking questions about when they're posting to certain sites, which rights are they giving up? And recently, client asked about Shopify. So let's go to the intellectual property section, and here it says right off the bat, they do not claim ownership to the materials you provide to Shopify. However, they do require a license to those materials. You grant Shopify a non-exclusive, transferable, sub-licensable, royalty-free, worldwide right and license to host, use, distribute, expose, modify, run, copy, store, publicly perform, communicate to the public, including by telecommunication, broadcast, reproduce, available, display, translate, and create derivative works of the material provided by you in connection with the services. Okay, so that makes us ask, what are the services? Because it's in connection with them. So when we look at how they define services earlier in the agreement, I just put it here to highlight it and separate it. Services offered by Shopify under these terms of services include various products and services that enable you to build your own store and help you to sell goods and services to customers, whether online, in person, or both. Any such services or services offered by Shopify are referred to in the terms of service as the services. That also includes any new features. So that's what they claim as the services. Then next they say we may use our rights under this license to operate, provide, and promote the services and to perform our obligation and exercise our rights under the terms of service. This is pretty broad. However, you need to think about it as, what are you going to actually be uploading to Shopify? It might, if you're selling physical products, it's probably going to be just a picture of the products. It doesn't mean that they can take your product and sell it or do something else with it, but maybe they can take your photo and use it and say, hey, look at this person is selling this on this site. And some of these rights that you're licensing to them, they need to have in order to provide the service. But it's still stated in a very broad way. I mean, in order to provide you the service of opening up a website, an online store, they're going to need to be able to save and copy the material that you upload to them. So, but it's interesting how they say we may use, which doesn't mean that that's the only way, which that would be the preferred language there. If it said, we may only use our rights under this license to operate, provide, and promote the services and to perform our obligations. They say this over here, which means they're trying to put it in plain English, which is anything you upload remains yours if it was yours and is your responsibility. But Shopify can use and publish the things you upload. Anything uploaded to Shopify remains the property and responsibility of its owner. However, Shopify will receive a license of material published through our platform that we may use to operate and promote our service. So they're trying to make it an easier to read language, but it's still pretty difficult and still pretty broad. The one thing that's pretty clear is saying you still own the rights in anything you upload, but essentially by giving them a license, you're giving them a lot of bandwidth to do things with that's not really that limited in this agreement. Also, at the same time, you are representing and warranting and agree that you have all the rights in the material to grant this license, meaning you own all the rights. So what could happen is if you're posting a photo or an image and you use some sort of stock photo or take something off of a Google search, you might not have the rights in that. So you don't have the right then to license that to Shopify. And later on in the agreement, if that is the case, there are a few, as part of the agreement, you're agreeing that you will indemnify them from that. Should they get sued because of something you posted, you're agreeing to indemnify them for that. Essentially, you will be responsible for any breach of terms of service by you, your affiliates, your subcontractors, liable as it's your own breach. But up here it says you agree to indemnify and hold us our parents or subsidiaries, Shopify parents, officers, and suppliers harmless from any claim or demand, including reasonable attorney's fees, made by a third party due to or arising out of your breach of the terms of service, documents incorporated by reference, or your violation of the laws or rights of a third party, any aspect of a transaction between you and a customer, including but not limited to refunds, fraudulent transactions, alleged or actual violations, or applicable law. But here where it says, the rights of a third party, that would be infringing on someone else's intellectual property rights, but also you probably would be in breach of the terms of service because you wouldn't have the right to represent and warrant that. Let's continue here. So you irrevocably waive any and all moral rights you may have in the materials in favor of Shopify and agree that this waiver may be invoked by anyone who obtains the rights in the materials through Shopify, including anyone to whom Shopify may transfer or grant, including by way of license or sublicense, any rights in therein. So moral rights are the ability to control what happens with your art. Say that you're the one that created it, and you're essentially waiving that if for some reason they don't give you the proper attribution, or if they use it in a way that you wouldn't like, you really can't say anything about it. So you are giving away a lot here. This is very broad. Shopify knows they're in a strong position that they can pretty much put anything in there they want, and people will agree to it. And it's unfortunate they took that road and went very broad instead of just limiting that they will only use it essentially to provide you the services. If you own material before providing them to Shopify, then despite uploading them to Shopify, they remain yours. They already said that. It's all just subject to the license you're providing. You can remove it at any time, but removing your Shopify store does not terminate any right or license granted to the materials that Shopify requires to exercise any rights to perform any obligation that arose under the term. So there, at least maybe it's somewhat limited because it's granted to the materials that Shopify requires to exercise the rights to perform any obligations that arose under the term. So that should mean that they can't use it any further after you delete your store, just to the effect of being able to continue on whatever the services were that were under the term, if there was for some reason like saving it onto their servers, things like that. You agree that Shopify can create at any time, review, and delete any or all of your materials submitted to the services, although Shopify is not obligated to, and you're granting Shopify a non-exclusive, transferable, sub-license, royalty-free, worldwide right to use the names, trademarks, service marks, and logos associated with your store. Your trademarks to operate, provide, and promote the services and to perform obligations and exercise our rights under the terms. The license will survive any termination of the services to the extent that Shopify requires the license to exercise rights to perform any obligations that arose. So again, here they're giving themselves the right to use your trademarks to list you on their store, to say maybe they do an ad based on you. So they're giving them the rights to use your brand name, your trademark there. Of course, they talk about their own intellectual property rights, but something else to know of is that, for the IP, it is the difference between, what you're actually uploading to Shopify website, which is, probably photos of the product, images. It might be a little different if you're selling a digital product and you're uploading that versus an actual product or just the picture of the product that you're uploading there. Although they do have the right to make derivatives. So depending upon what the product is, if it's artwork, by uploading the picture of the artwork, maybe they can make an actual copy of the artwork because it's a derivative of that picture then. Could be argued here. So it is very broad. Are they probably going to use the license to the extent that they can? Probably not, but it is a very broad license. And one other thing I just wanted to point out was they do talk about the DMCA, Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which is in 11. So just so you know, if you do upload something that is a third party's, usually there's a procedure for Shopify to be immune from that called DMCA. And this is the procedure for what would happen. Normally someone would file a takedown notice. Shopify would probably take down your listing for that until it's worked out. And there's a couple of different things that could be done, but here it says, which just means Shopify respects intellectual property rights, and you should too. If we receive a DMCA notice, we may disable access or remove the alleged infringing content from your store. If you think the claim is valid, you can send a counter notification. If you don't think the claim is valid, meaning you believe you have all the rights into it, there's something called a counter notification, and you would send that. If you believe one of our merchants is infringing your intellectual rights, you can send a DMCA. So if you think someone else is infringing on your rights, you can send one. And there's all procedures around DMCA. But I just wanted to point that out because we did discuss about the indemnification part, that you're supposed to indemnify them as a Shopify seller. And just because they take it down does not obviate that, meaning if someone still decides to sue for infringement, even once it's taken down, because it's basically strict liability. Once it's out there, you're infringing on it. If you're infringing, then this is part of the procedure, but it might not obviate that liability. But just wanted you to know about DMCA takedown, and maybe we'll talk about that in a different video at a later date. So I hope this helps. Thanks for listening.